I found out that San Marcos City Council member Ed Musgrove is running for state senate, District 40. And I got to tell you guys, I couldn't believe it. This is exactly what we were designed to do, and more accurately, what we were designed to prevent. He actually, when he ran a few years ago for city council, he submitted a questionnaire, and it was pretty clear to us, that he was not our friend. We did not endorse him. I would have loved to have blocked his initial election when he was running for San Marcos City Council, but we just didn't have a candidate running against him that was strong enough, so he got in. And now, as they do, he wants to move up to higher office, and state senate is where you really start making some of the worst decisions about guns that people can make in their political life. I actually wrote an article on this. You can see this. We'll probably send this out this week so that you can reread, because back in November of 2019, I actually wrote an article on Ed. And he basically, the name of the article is "What's the Biggest Danger to Our Second Amendment?" So the article goes, let me just touch on a couple of things. It's election season, and San Diego County gun owners received our candidate questionnaire back from San Marcos City Council candidate Ed Musgrove. In a word, it was horrible. Normally, I don't publish information from questionnaires. If their response includes a questionable statement or two, I look at it as an opportunity to educate the candidate. I contact the candidate and make sure they fully understood the question we asked. I look at it as obviously an opportunity to educate primarily. The anti-gun laws in California are extremely complicated, and candidates for public office cannot know every nuance of every issue. We understand that and are happy to be a resource to those who want to make good, informed decisions. After consideration, I decided I will not circle back with Ed. Ed clearly understands the questions, but Ed is a great example of the worst kind of political enemy our Second Amendment rights have in California. Ed doesn't really support gun owners, and in some ways is against them, but even in some areas where he agrees with gun owners, he won't help. So basically what I'm describing here is he's one of those guys who's all for gun ownership as long as it's him and his buddies. He's former law enforcement. So yeah, he and his buddies, he and his cop friends, sure, we should have guns. And, some of their other friends that they've worked with or whatever, or trained with, then they should have guns, but not the general public. The general public is not as equal as the rest of us. So I wanted to take a look. On each of these questions, the candidate actually has one of four responses. So I wanted to make our questionnaire so that it's a commitment. Not just a yes or no or whatever. So the four responses are, I support and will actively help support. So we ask them the question about whatever having to do with Second Amendment. And the first option to respond is, I support and will actively help to support. Second is, I support but will not help to support. The third is, I do not support but will not do anything to oppose. And the other one is, I do not support and will actively work to oppose. So here was one of the questions. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The individual right to keep and bear arms for defense, hunting, or sport is an important part of my political philosophy. That's the statement we made to Ed. Ed said, I support and will actively help to support. The Second Amendment is in place to ensure the balance of our rights under the Constitution. So most Second Amendment supporters would see this as a positive and take this response as a good sign. However, even elected officials who vote for some of the most extreme anti-Second Amendment legislation will tell you that they support the Second Amendment and that the Second Amendment is important to them. So that's the first question we ask. Like, hey, do you like the Second Amendment? Do you not like the Second Amendment? And I got to tell you, people as high as Hillary Clinton will tell you, oh yeah, I support the Second Amendment, but obviously she does not. So we ask regarding concealed carry permits, and this was a different time back in 2019 when it comes to CCWs, but we asked, do you believe self-defense or personal protection is sufficient to meet the state's good cause requirement? Now, the good cause requirement is completely gone, but what we were asking him is, hey, do you have to write this stupid creative writing paragraph on trying to convince the government that you're good enough to exercise your Second Amendment right? Here's what he wrote. I do not support, but will not do anything to oppose. He does not support that, but he won't work against us. Promise, maybe he has his fingers crossed behind his back, or maybe not. Possession in our privately owned property is granted by the Constitution. There are some, however, who tend to pose risk to the general public by extension of this right to possession in the public arena. Reasonable safeguards, not infringing on the Second Amendment, are acceptable, but require close scrutiny. That's what he actually wrote. Now, he chose to actually write that. He chose to go into the notes and actually write and say, hey, look, you can't just give Second Amendment rights to any old person. I'm overly qualified to decide who does and doesn't get their rights. What do you guys? I'm going to open that up to Alicia and Sam and Michael. First off, right off the bat, what are your thoughts on that?
There's so much in there.
Just stick with the whole, hey, look, not everybody. We still got to scrutinize this thing. The government still needs to decide, who is or isn't okay. And gee, golly gosh. And, what are your thoughts on that part?
I'm wondering, did he have full grasp on the whole cause statement? Did he truly understand what you were asking? I honestly don't think that he had a full understanding of what you were even asking. I don't think he knew what he claimed to know.
Well, keep in mind that he's a police officer. He was working for the sheriff's department. He claimed that this was a major part of his platform. But the other thing is, he didn't hesitate. At no time did he say, hey, you know what? Let me make sure I understand what's going on here. Right. He just said, here's my opinion. Take it or leave it. So I'm not willing to give him the benefit of the doubt in this situation, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I'm going to let Sam answer while I kind of read through this and sort my thoughts. Give me a moment.
Sam, what do you think?
Well, this is one of those issues that's so California specific that I really don't feel that I'm in a good position to make any value judgment here.
And keep in mind, too, that we're not talking about keeping, and of course I went on to say, in fact, started to repeat myself. Ed chose not to stop at quote-unquote scrutiny and made sure to heighten his requirement to close scrutiny. Keep in mind, this is not keeping a CCW out of the hands of criminals, the untrained, or the insane. Ed clearly states that he wants close scrutiny for sane, trained, law-abiding citizens who simply want to protect their self outside of the home. I wonder what other inalienable rights would Ed like to scrutinize before access is granted? Mm-hmm. Oh, Michael, what are your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly, someone that feels that, we need his permission to exercise this right, and, mm-hmm. and having to go through these motions of, the good cause portion, which, like I said, that's gone now, right? We don't even have to deal with that now, but nevertheless, just for someone to be so arrogant to think that they would have to be able to be in such a position to make that determination, right? I'm not sure I can relate to that.
So the part of his statement that made me think he didn't truly understand the process is how he's correlating. You're asking about the cause statement. Mm-hmm. Where we have to essentially kind of prove or justify why we feel we should have it or why we needed it. Mm-hmm. And he's tying into that essentially a prohibited people. Those are two different things. One's not related to the other. That's why I was kind of questioning his understanding.
So let's go a little bit further in the article, because I think this is here, I'll just read it. There's an interesting second layer to Ed's answer.
Okay.
Ed has discussed this issue in the past with SDCGO staff. During the 2018 election, when Commander Dave Myers ran against Sheriff Gore, Ed sent us the following message about Myers' proposed CCW policy. Quote, he, or Myers, and this is somebody he opposed, by the way. So Ed did not like Myers, okay? Myers, also says he will personally review and approve all applications. I'm learning political speak, and this sounds like a loophole to deny based on mitigating factors. If self-defense is all that's needed, the records manager could stamp approved and deal done. I know Dave wants to be responsible, but that's just it. He will be personally responsible if he gets a quote unquote bad feeling. Will he keep to his word or deny and risk the backlash? Mike, my personal belief is that he's said no criminal record or other disqualifier, then issue the permit. Let individual responsibility be the focus, not some ambiguous standard that many counties employ. So in Ed's statement 2 years prior to his questionnaire, Ed criticized someone who he opposed politically. This is someone who's like, hey, look, this guy, I don't like him, so I'm going to poke a hole in his process and procedure. Mm-hmm. So he opposed him politically by suggesting that his good cause policy could be abused by requiring close scrutiny. Ed's statement from just 2 years prior to that contradicts his questionnaire. Now that Ed's running for a position of power, rather than commenting on someone else's campaign, his view on power has changed. And then I went on to write, Ed, I am familiar with quote unquote political speak too, and yours is hypocritical. He basically came through and said, through this email that I'm sure he didn't remember I kept 2 years prior, it was pretty clear that he absolutely understood the CCW process and what could and couldn't happen and what didn't go through the process of when you're getting a CCW. But when it was somebody he opposed, then gee, wait a minute. Why can't this guy just, stamp approved if they pass the background check and go through the training? But then when he's in power, all of a sudden it was, not everybody should have a CCW there, Mike, and we should probably weed out some of the, folks that we don't like, even if they do pass the background check and go through the roster. And that's really what I meant by this. These folks are more dangerous. If you have somebody, he's running as a Republican, he says, I love the Second Amendment. When you have somebody who's running as a Democrat, say, and they tend to not be as friendly as Republicans in general, but it's not true that all Democrats hate the Second Amendment, and, it's just not true. But if you have somebody who's running as a Democrat and they are clear, you know what? I want to get rid of assault weapons. I want to stop CCWs. I want to expand sensitive areas so that you can't carry. You know what to do with that person. You know where to categorize that person.
Well, clearly he's taken the temperature of the room and he's telling you what he thinks wants to be heard. He's not being honest and genuine himself.
And those are even worse than the people that are honest about being our enemy.
Right. They
get into a position of power and all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, what happened here? I thought this guy was on our side. He says he loves the Second Amendment. He goes on to talk about the roster, the California roster of handguns. He said we basically say we oppose it, the California roster of handguns, which of course we've since filed a lawsuit and are trying to get rid of. And he says he supports it. He doesn't like the roster, but he won't support us. He won't help us, was his answer. The handgun roster is a California de facto ban on normal popular pistols. And but if elected, Ed won't help. Ammunition registration is another one. Online purchase ban. So you now have to go through a background check when you're buying ammunition, and it pretty much has gotten rid of your ability to purchase online. And he says he supports the idea. Like, hey, it shouldn't be, but he won't support us. He won't support us. So this is somebody, we already have somebody that we've endorsed and that you've seen on our voter guide in the past. Her name's Christy Bruce Lane, and she's running for the 40th. And I got to tell you, I just don't see that there should be any kind of need to reevaluate anybody else running in that district when we have her running. I certainly don't think that we should even entertain the idea of Ed Musgrove. My fear is that he's going to stand up and say, hey, I'm for the Second Amendment, and I used to be a police officer, and everybody backs the blue, and gee golly gosh, I got a gun of my own, and you'll be duped into supporting somebody that won't support you and probably disagrees fundamentally with many of the Second Amendment beliefs that you and I share. So I'd caution and warn people that he's going to make a run of it. He's going to try to get the local Republican Party to support him. But please don't. Please don't. Any other thoughts, anybody, on any of that before we move on?
I'm thankful that you put this out here. Is this article something that listeners can go and find? Because I like being able to kind of read through this thing as a whole. I see it's on the website. How do they find it?
Yeah, I think I'm going to send this out in an email this week.
Okay. And I'm glad you put this out.
You can search it and look it up, but
okay.
I'll put it out and make it easy for people. You're going to hear a lot about this race over the next year and a half.
Are we going to see more answers to questionnaires for people in general? Because I kind of like this.
You like that?
Or do you have some kind of
I think it
promise to them that you won't?
No, well, there's kind of an understood, like, look, we need to be able to talk about this. What I don't do is if somebody gets a question wrong, or maybe they clearly don't understand the issue, I don't jump on their head immediately. Let's use this as a learning tool, and let's talk about it. Hey, everybody, thanks for watching. I'm Michael from Gun Owners Radio. If you liked what you saw, please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and make a comment. Help us out. Go to gunownersradio.com. Thanks for watching.